Cut for, I don't know, 20 seconds and tell me if it cuts off at all. We're going to try and start with you first. You're going to give us your maybe 3 to 4 minute spiel, and then we're going to go to Dr. Nish, then we're going to go to Rob Robinson, and we're going to try and just paint a big picture about MOOCs. Reporters here are really anxious to hear how we're covering MOOCs and what their issues are with the issue. Can you hear me? Am I still on? Are you still hearing me?
Yes, this one sounds a lot more.
Okay, let's go ahead and start before anything else happens. I want to just give a very quick, and we're going to spend a lot of time with reporters' questions, but just a real quick backdrop to this because I think the context is important. Budget cuts, soaring costs, flawed economic pricing models, competition, politics, these are all part of the unfolding story of higher education, but there's something else now. The growing perception among average Americans that for all its promise, higher education is on a slippery slope in retreat. It seems access and affordability are more at risk than ever. Enter the MOOCs. Now, I like doing stories about MOOCs because I just like saying MOOCs. It's a great word. But I know that you, Daphne, hate the term.
Yeah.
If you could call it something else, and then you give us your spiel on what Coursera is, what would you call it? What else could it be called?
Boy, I don't know. I actually tried to think up of a good acronym that wouldn't have nasty connotations, and by the time I thought about it a little bit, MOOCs had taken hold, and so I stopped thinking about it. I think at this point, since it's a noun, a verb, an adjective, and an adverb, I think we're kind of stuck with it. So, I don't know. But let me tell you maybe a little bit about, do you want to hear the history of how we got here, or do you want to hear where I think it's going? What would you like to hear?
Well, tell us what Coursera is.
Okay. Coursera is a Stanford spin-off that was motivated by the success of the Stanford experiment in the fall of 2011, which in turn emerged from about 5 years of experimentation within Stanford on technology-enhanced education, both within Stanford and as a way of presenting content to people outside of Stanford who would not otherwise be so privileged. So the experiments in the fall of 2011, I think, really clarified to everyone the enormous potential that there was in providing free, accessible education to everyone around the world. And after thinking about it for a couple of months, we decided that the right way to execute on that vision was not to keep this as an internal Stanford project that only put Stanford content online, but rather to spin this out and provide a platform that supported multiple top universities in making content available to the world. So Coursera is now an independent company. It partners with 83 currently of the world's top institutions, organizations, in order to provide educational content courses to people around the world for free. We have, I think this week we're going to hit 4 million students. We're getting very close. We have 390 courses. We have, 83 partners. We have courses across the range of disciplines, getting all the way from computer science and engineering through STEM, humanities, social sciences, medicine, business, art, music, and so on. The courses are intended to be a rigorous, meaningful course experience. This is not just open courseware sitting passively on the web. There's assessments, there's exercises, there's exams, there's a community of people who work together to make their way through the challenging material. And we hope to build this out to something that has enough content to teach anybody, anywhere, anything they want to learn. And I think, we have an opportunity to do that within a number of years.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go on to Dr. Nish, who is going to give us his 34-minute presentation. And I believe you have a PowerPoint presentation ready. So stick with us. Daphne, we're going to get back to you with some questions.
Okay.
Thank you. So what I thought is that we first begin with a SWOT analysis, which we all love to do, is that what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So if you look at here, the opportunity, or what I call the strength, is MOOCs will democratize education and bring educational equality and the freedom across the world. That is the promise. That's the promise on which this whole movement is based on. But if you look at the weaknesses, the learning experience is one size fits all so far. And also it's very remote experience, does not connect with the students. And also there are issues like uneven quality, poor assessment, no credits, plagiarism, etc. If you look at opportunity, the learners will have opportunity to design their own degrees eventually when there are lots of MOOCs, and then they can create their own education path and use MOOCs as a low-cost option, or I would say access, impact, as well as excellence of affordable cost to the learners. But there are some threats coming up. Number one, the faculty is saying, I'm getting marginalized because of the MOOC, because MOOCs are produced by others, and if I have to teach with that, there have been controversy. There one MOOC will replace textbook publishing, so publishers are getting threatened as well. So there is some pushback from them. If you look at MOOCs may bypass university to get to the employment, which is the Udacity model. You do not have to go to college to get employed if you take 10 MOOCs. And finally, if you look at the domination of research one university in the MOOC field is now creating this buzz, what will happen to other universities which are not our one? So I think with this quote, I'll stop here as the introduction. And so before I go, I just want to show you one statistics here, and then we can open it for discussion. This is the statistics from the MITx course, which was done by my good friend Anand Agarwal, and he did the circuits and electronics. 155,000 students enrolled, 23,000 tried the first time, and then 9,000 dropped out and took the midterm, and almost 7,000 then almost completed. Only 340 got A grade in that. I just want to put that statistics out and stop talking. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nish. Were you able to hear okay, Daphne?
Yes, I was able to hear fine, and I have a bunch of responses, but I'll wait.
Yeah, no, we're going to ask you, in fact, to both you and Rob to talk about what Dr. Nish said, but let's go on to Rob and have his presentation.
Great. Can you put up that one slide? Right. This one. Yep. And put it on the slide. Okay, Daphne, for your information, what I'm putting up is the Gartner hype cycle. Very quickly, so my name is Rob Robinson. I have two hats. I work as a consultant in the higher education space for Blackboard after 27 years in public higher education, most of that in the state of Texas. I'm also currently the president of the United States Distance Learning Association. Spent a lot of my career working in the online delivery of fully accredited degree programs. And so really what I want to talk about and leave with y'all as education reporters are a couple of thoughts. This, if you're not familiar with the Gartner hype cycle, it is used by the Gartner consultancy to place various new technologies in what they call this cycle, right? So it starts with a technology trigger, it goes up a peak of inflated expectations, they then slide down into the trough of disillusionment, they begin to climb up the slope of enlightenment until they hit the plateau of productivity. And in the roughly 2 years since that we've seen the MOOCs emerge, I think it tracks this curve really well. And we're over the peak of the inflated expectations. I think we're going to see a little slide down into, and eventually what we're going to see are MOOCs finding their place. And I think right now they haven't quite found their place. They are still experimental in many ways. If you talk to the edX founders, they'll still tell you that this is very much experimental. Harvard and MIT are not necessarily bringing it into the core of the institution. It is this outreach kind of thing. You'll hear a lot about completion rates. Whether or not that's an appropriate metric, I'm completely open to that conversation. I think what's interesting, though, is now as we begin to unpack some of the demographics of the learners, the folks who take MOOCs, north of 70% of those students already have a bachelor's degree. So it begs the question of to whom are we offering these MOOCs and why are we offering it? What are the student motivations to come into that? So some institutions are thinking about using the MOOC platforms to reach traditional learners. There's a huge question around how we can begin to offer credit for that. That brings up a whole host of questions. There's always the lifelong learners. I think that's who's been packing the MOOCs to date. The fact that they are open and on topic and of rigor really drives lifelong learning. That is a different cadre of students than when we talk about the core of how do we educate and credential students in the U.S. And so I think there's still a gap there. And the main thing I want to leave you with today as education reporters, because this is very frustrating as a practitioner in the online space for 15 years, is the problem of conflation. So MOOCs use online delivery, but they're not the same as the millions of students who are currently enrolled in fully accredited online degrees by quality institutions. So there's the first problem with conflation. MOOCs doesn't equal all online. The second problem with conflation around online is, and this is frequent, online equals for-profit equals bad actor, terrible education. That's fundamentally incorrect as well. So there are plenty of checks and balances, and in fact, the majority of online courses are being offered by mid-tier public institutions and community colleges who are fully accredited, and there's lots of oversight of those courses. So I'll just leave you with that, and we can start the conversation.
And before we go to questions, so Daphne, what was it that Dr. Nish said that you either disagree with or you want to expand on?
There's a number. I made a bunch of annotations that I want to discuss. I'm going to go through very briefly. First of all, I'd like to question the issue of no interaction. The fact that the interaction is via electronic media doesn't mean it doesn't exist. There's a tremendous amount of peer-to-peer interaction in discussion forums as well as in in-person study groups. So that's one comment. The second comment is that I also question the one-size-fits-all. Not so much because I fundamentally disagree that the experience could be more customized to individual students, but because I question that in comparison to traditional face-to-face teaching in a large lecture class, this is actually, I would say this is less of a one-size-fits-all than a traditional lecture because of the ability to the student to watch at his or her own time, pace, rewinding, doing an assignment more than once, getting immediate feedback, and so on. I would argue that this is less of a one-size-fits-all. And the third comment that I wanted to speak to, which also came up in the last presentation, is the issue of the completion, which I think is a metric that is very much misinterpreted by people who haven't really thought through the demographics of the population and the notion of their intent. Of the people who enrolled for MOOC, unlike in a traditional college class, most of them have no intention to complete the MOOC. They're browsing, they're exploring, they're viewing this as taking a book out from the library. So if you actually sort of break this down a little bit more finely and explore populations that in some way or another have declared an intent to complete the MOOC, our completion rates go up into the mid-80s and even into the mid-90s. And I can speak more to the details of that if you're interested. But you know, the 8% completion rate, which is a number that people talk about, and in fact it is true, really reflects the heterogeneity of the population and the differences in their initial level of motivation and intent and what they're trying to get out of the course. Many of them are treating this like a book. You read a few chapters, you learn something, you're happy. And so I think it's just a completely incorrect metric to apply in this context.
Excuse me, Dr. Nish, anything you want to respond to that Daphne said or Rob?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. Dr. Nish? Dr. Nish is going to tell us if you can hear Dr. Nish.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm talking about one-size-fits-all model, and I think what we are looking at, if you look at the comparison of classroom, which you said, Daphne, I agree with that. However, I think that a lot more is expected from the technology, and I think MOOC are essentially putting the technology, education technology backwards, as compared to what the system have been created, like intelligent tutoring system, adaptive learning systems, which are essentially providing a lot more individualized learning pathways. So over-dependence on the video, and then yes, there is discussion board, but learning by peer is not like learning from the expert that we do in the classroom, where there is gradient from the higher knowledge to the students which are learning. Yes, students can work together and collaborate on certain problems. But the question here is, can we go away from some of the over-dependence on the video medium, which is, we all know, is not very effective medium, and that's what makes it one size fits all. So going away from that and using the content to create some kind of interactive, adaptive systems, I think that's where we will take MOOC to completely a different generation, where it will become extremely effective. So I support MOOC, but what I'm saying that today's MOOC have a lot to gain and a lot to improve to get to that level of interactivity.
Okay, we're going to go to questions now. We need a first question from our reporters. And maybe I should ask for a show of hands. How many of you have all covered MOOCs? You have everybody's, almost everybody, or have covered MOOCs. Any questions for the panelists there? Again, identify yourself and ask your question.
I'm Tina Barsagian from KQED's.
Can you hear that, Daphne?
Yeah, you're turn your microphone on and work towards
Okay,
it.
now try that again.
I'm Tina Barsagian from KQED's Mindshift. No.
She cannot. Maybe if she gets the
Use that,
handheld mic.
yeah, use the handheld.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. My question is actually for Daphne.
Okay, this question is for you, Daphne, and it's coming from...
Hi, Daphne. This is Tina Barsagian from KQED's Mindshift. I was curious about the completion rates. You said of those who intend to finish are actually between 80 and 90%. I would like to know more about that, and also, are those folks getting accredited for the courses they're taking? I know you guys are working towards that.
So let me give you the basis for the stats that I quoted. So first of all, as some of you might know, in January we initiated what's called the signature track, which is a way for students to earn an identity verified, university branded, more rigorous credential. It's still not credit bearing, but it has more substance to it. So of the people who sign up for signature track, about 74–75% complete the course. And you could, these are the people that presumably if they weren't committed to completing the course, they wouldn't have signed up for a track where the primary purpose is to earn a credential. Now, if you further refine this and you look at an entry survey, and you ask people how committed are you when they come in to completing the class, and you look at the population that says they're highly committed to doing that, about 84% of them complete the class, and if you further sign up for signature track, about 94% of them complete the class. And so for that population that actually comes in with the goal of earning this type of earning a credential, or even just completing the class because that's what they want, the completion rates are actually very high. Now, do these earn credit? By and large, no. We did have a small number of courses that have been assessed as credit equivalent by the American Council for Education, and we had a number of people opting in to that credit exam. This just concluded in March or April, and so we don't have a good sense yet for the extent to which these credits can be articulated into a degree program in the same way that other ACE recommended courses are. And I can talk about the AC program if people are interested. But basically, most of these courses are do not accrue credit in terms of the learner.
Another question on the floor. There was another hand. Did you have a question? Yeah, and then we'll go.
So we'll go to Devin Katayama, and then we'll go to Martha.
Devin Katayama with Louisville Public Radio. My question is this cost efficient to do education this way in higher education? And if so, will this lead to costs for students going down ultimately? I mean, is this the way out of student debt and all the issues that a lot of folks are seeing in higher education?
And I suppose we can ask that of all panelists. Who wants to go first?
I will.
Rob's going to go first.
Hang on, Rob, you're gonna bring the mic too?
Just jump up
Yeah,
there.
it's probably better if they go up to the, yeah, excellent.
So I think what you've articulated is one of the strongest drivers of the interest in the MOOCs, right? Institutions across the country under intense downward pressure on tuition and others, dwindling sources of resource. The students and their parents are demanding, some sort of cost mitigation. figuring out, I think the primary interest from many institutions, not in providing a MOOC, but there's the other side of can an institution use the MOOC content and integrate it into their curriculum, putting aside, sort of accreditation issues now, structurally, how does that work? Because what they see, what the administration sees, is an opportunity to radically alter the economics of, typically where this comes up, is lower division undergraduate education. Can I get students to knock out remedial stuff somewhere else at a very low cost? Can I offload some of these cost burdens as an institution to something that's free or very inexpensive? So there's a lot of people who are hoping that MOOCs are the source or the solution. I think you've got to put that all in context with the credit issue, the quality issue, those kind of things. And as an aside, this model, for the students that we're talking about, those who need remedial education, they've been admitted to an institution, they need remedial education, this is probably not a good model for them to be in a very large course with a limited set of identified supports. You need to be a self-starter here. Many of those students that are in that developmental track aren't.
Dr. Nish?
No, okay, sit down.
So the question of cost is very important, as we all know. If you look at the way cost structure works for the MOOC is expensive endeavor. So it costs about anywhere from 150 to 500,000 to produce a MOOC. It's a good quality MOOC which has a lot of video production, etc. So in terms of the cost of production, and these MOOCs are free at this point. But if you look at the long term of these expensive MOOC, sustainability is a major issue. So if MIT and Harvard has put $60 million in this experiment, after that $60 million is gone, there has to be a sustainability model which is going to continue these MOOCs to be produced. And I think Coursera is working on some of those models. Udacity is working on another model. So I think one question is that if you're looking for the degree completion, then at this point MOOCs are not the choice. However, you must have heard about the recent announcement between Udacity and I believe Georgia Tech to provide a low-cost $7,000 master's program. So I think there could be some of these things coming down in a way that the overall cost of education will go down, because by definition MOOCs are going to be free. But I do not think the MOOC will be entirely free. Primarily, once you get the conceptual underpinning down, then if you have to do credentialization, as we know for the credit transfer today, you have to pay X amount of dollars. And I think that's where how many credits are accepted by the universities, and that's where the question will come in. This is where my comment was, that universities may feel that they are marginalized, because if there are 300, 500 MOOCs and I can take all the MOOCs and then I can get, let's say, 60, 70 credits, then what is university doing there? So I think these are the questions which we have to wrestle with, and those are the questions in front of us. Thank you.